Hello, thank you for checking out this episode of the Wire Podcast. In today's episode, I'm joined by my friend Thomas Smith, and we're going to be making our predictions for each major award for the upcoming NFL season. We're going to be making our predictions for the Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, the Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year, the Comeback Player of the Year, the Coach of the Year, and lastly, the MVP. We're going to be talking about a lot of players in today's episode. It's a good one, so get your snacks ready, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, welcome back to the Wire Podcast. I'm here today with Thomas Smith, and on the last episode that we did together, we talked about the AFC, and we talked about literally every team in the AFC. We also did a similar episode with every team in the NFC, just kind of previewing what we expect from every team in the NFL this season. And in that episode, I promised that we would be back soon for an episode where we would predict the winners of each award for the 2023 NFL season. We're doing that today. We're going to talk about every award that's, the awards for the rookies, Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, and the MVP. Hopefully I didn't miss any awards there, but we're going to be doing that today. Thomas, I'm excited to have you with me.
Yeah, dude, me too. I'm super excited. And just to preface before we get into this, I saw Ryan's picks for all of these before I actually submitted mine. And so what I tried to do was, unless I was just in 100% agreement with him on an award, I tried to pick someone different. So there are some that I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of agree with Ryan, but I tried to pick someone different just because it was a close toss-up. So we'll have lots and lots of guys to talk about for these awards.
Yeah, there were some awards where I was like, oh, dude, I think this guy's a great chance, and I was like, oh man, I think this guy's a good shot too. And I was coming up with 8 names for one award. So There's a lot of great players in the NFL. So I'm excited to go ahead and dive into this. And we can get started with the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. And I'll let you get started. Who's your number 2?
Yeah, so my runner-up, I have Bryce Young. If it weren't for my number 1, my winner, I would think that Bryce Young has a really good shot to win it. He's probably in the best position out of all the quarterbacks to have success in year 1, in my opinion. He's got a good offensive line around him. The receiving room is questionable for sure, but the defense has got some pieces as well. Mainly just the offensive line is what I'm worried about, especially for rookie quarterbacks. If you have a decent offensive line around you, you have a chance to be successful. And so with Bryce Young, I feel like he has the highest chance out of the rookies to have success in year 1. So he is my runner-up. Who do you have for yours?
Yeah, my runner-up was Jahmyr Gibbs. My one thing with Bryce Young, wanted to mention with him is that I wonder when he's gonna play.
Yeah,
that's fair. I know their general manager has said that he may not start right away.
Yeah,
which I don't really understand, but
yeah, you're right. I mean, it could be Andy Dalton. I'm just hoping for the Justin Herbert trajectory. Maybe Andy Dalton will have get what happened to Tyrod Taylor? Did he get his ribs broken? Was that what it was?
So it was, I don't remember what week it was, but before the game he was getting an injection and it punctured his lung.
It punctured his lung.
That's what happened. And that happened pre-game, right before the game.
And then Justin Herbert just had to step in and won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Maybe that'll happen with Andy Dalton.
Yeah, maybe. And Anthony Dalton is a good quarterback. Last year he had a good year, good season. So I wouldn't be surprised if they rolled with him.
Yeah.
And Bryce Young started maybe from week 4 and on.
Yeah, for sure.
And if that's the case, I do think that hurts his chances, but I do like that pick.
Yeah.
So for my runner-up, I had Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay.
Great player.
Yeah.
He's a dual threat. He can run, can catch. I think he's one of the best receiving prospects in terms of running backs that we've seen since McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Just a historically great receiving back. And I think he's going to have a great chance to play year 1. I know that the Lions signed David Montgomery. But I think that they obviously love him. If you've seen the clip of their war room after they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, you know how much they love the guy.
Oh, they're ecstatic.
They're ecstatic about him. and they love him so much, and they were willing to trade DeAndre Swift for a fourth round pick to get him out of there. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs. I think they're in love with Jahmyr Gibbs. I think they're going to use him in all sorts of ways as a rookie. I think he's going to be super impactful as a receiver. And that offense is very good. Last year, their passing attack was one of the best in the NFL. And I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get a lot of opportunity year one. And he's a great player. So I think he's going to make the most out of his opportunities. And I think he would have a great chance of winning the award if both of our number ones did not exist.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot, and I think he'll have a good shot at winning Offensive Rookie of the Year.
He was a guy I definitely considered. I didn't put him up there just because I did want to talk about Bryce Young as well. But with Jahmyr Gibbs, the only concern I have is that they have signed David Montgomery, and that I do think he'll get a lot of like the goal line touches, where he'll probably have more rushing touchdowns and that kind of stat over Jahmyr Gibbs. But Gibbs has a good chance to, break like 500 yards receiving as a rookie running back.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see how they use him in the passing game because they're not going to have Jameson Williams because he's suspended for, I believe 6 games.
Yes, I think
for gambling. And outside of him, they don't really have a lot of great pass catchers with experience.
Right.
They have obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown, but other than that, they don't have a lot of talented receivers who have experience.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna rely heavily on Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs. And Sam Laporta was a guy I considered for the Offensive Rookie of the Year, but a tight end has literally never won the award.
Yeah, and tight ends just don't typically have a lot of success as rookies. It's just not something that typically happens. But yeah, all right, so moving on to our winner.
Yeah, we both have the same winner.
This is one of the awards where we have the same winner, and that is Bijan Robinson, running back for the Atlanta Falcons. He just has the most clear path to have the most volume out of any of the rookies. Like, he's going to get so many touches. Yes, the Falcons have Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson, but they are not Bijan. They drafted Bijan with a top 10 pick. They're going to have to use him like they drafted him in the top 10. They have it's a top 5 run blocking offensive line with the Falcons. And so he's just in position to have great success as a rookie. And we're talking about a guy who's been talked about as the best running back prospect since like Saquon, or even some people are saying the best running back prospect since Adrian Peterson. So he should have a lot of success year one.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Bijan is a historically great running back prospect, amazing as a runner and a receiver, and he's in a great situation. Tyler Algier had an awesome rookie season, but the Falcons seem to love Bijan. I think he's going to be the guy there. I think he's going to get a ton of carries and a ton of catches. And like you said, they have an elite run-blocking offensive line. That's going to make things even easier for Bijan. So I think that he's in the best position to succeed out of all the rookies from the jump. I just think he's going to get all the opportunities. Obviously, he's a great player. And I think he's in a great spot to have a lot of success and to be super productive right off the bat. So I think he is the easy choice for the Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely.
Now moving on. So for each of these awards, we're both going to name a runner-up, the winner, and some sleepers. So who is your first sleeper? Or who is your one sleeper?
So I really just had one sleeper for this one that I came up with. I know you'll probably have a couple to talk about. But for me, I wanted to talk about Jonathan Mingo, the wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers. He was a second-round draft pick out of Ole Miss. So I would consider like sleeper guys typically to be non-first rounders. I do, for our Defensive Rookie of the Year, I do have some first rounders in the quote-unquote sleeper category. But for Jonathan Mingo, he's a second-round wide receiver out of Ole Miss to the Panthers. And their receiving room is just very weak. I would say their number one receiver is probably DJ Chark. And then they also have Adam Thielen and a couple other guys like Shi Smith and Terrace Marshall Jr. So it's just a weak receiving room. And it feels like Jonathan Mingo could step in and immediately build some chemistry with a fellow rookie, another person that I just talked about, which is Bryce Young. And, eventually once Bryce takes over, maybe they have like a really good chemistry, and he's just feeding Mingo. So he was a guy that is kind of a deep sleeper for me, just like, but out of all the receivers, honestly, out of all the receivers that were taken, it felt like he had the clearest path and the easiest path for a lot of targets and receptions.
Yeah, I like that pick as a sleeper. I think, like you mentioned, like a lot of the top receivers in this year's draft went to not necessarily bad situations, but to situations where they're likely not going to have a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, they're just like
right off the bat,
buried behind other really good receivers.
Yeah, like Jackson Smith-Njigba went to the Seahawks, where he's playing behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Like, he's just not going to get that many opportunities year one.
Same thing with like Zay Flowers, buried behind Odell and Rashad Bateman.
And Mark Andrews.
Yeah,
and then exactly. Quentin Johnston is behind Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. It's just a lot of the top receivers in this year's draft just went to tough situations to be productive right off the bat.
Yeah.
So I like that pick. For me, I have one deep sleeper, I don't want to say deep sleeper, but one guy who's like actually a sleeper. But the first name I wrote down was Anthony Richardson. I think he's going to play week one. I think he's going to start the whole year. And I think that he's going to be more productive than people think.
Oh yeah.
I think he's going to be super productive as a rusher. I seriously believe that the Colts could have one of the best run games in the league this year just because they have Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, and they have a talented offensive line. If the offensive line performs like they should, their run game could be insane.
Yeah.
Like this season, there are going to be some bumps in the road. He's not going to be perfect. The decision making is probably going to be questionable at times. The accuracy might be shaky, but I think he can be a lot better than people think. My one guy who is like actually a sleeper for the offensive rookie of the year is Josh Downs,
his teammate,
who was Anthony Richardson's teammate. I think he's going to be an awesome slot receiver. I think he can be really good right away. He was awesome in college. He's just an incredible slot receiver. Plays way bigger than he is. My one question about him is, what's the opportunity going to look like in Indianapolis?
Right.
Because right now he's listed as a backup behind Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, and Isaiah McKenzie. So how many opportunities is he going to get?
He'll start over Isaiah McKenzie.
I would hope.
I feel that he'll win that slot job.
Maybe. And in all the reports coming out of, rookie camp are that he's killing it. Like, every tweet I've seen about Josh Downs has been awesome. So hopefully he does get a lot of opportunities year one. And if he does, I think he's going to make the most of it.
I feel like he's going to be one of those guys sort of similar to like Elijah Moore's rookie year, where it was like, okay, first few weeks, like, okay, we're not seeing a lot of this guy. But then it's like the last, 5 to 6 weeks of the season, it's like, oh, this guy's so good. Can't wait to see what happens in year two.
Yeah.
I feel like that is kind of Josh Downs' trajectory in my head.
Yeah, but I think he's a great molded receiver to win this award because he's like a slot receiver who can carry a large volume of targets.
Oh yeah.
So like the numbers could be great, and if you're a voter and you're just like looking at like total like counting stats, and he has a ton of receptions and yards, like I think voters may be like, ooh, this guy's interesting. Maybe we should take a deeper look.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, now we can move on to the Defensive Rookie of the Year, and I'll let you get started with your runner-up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. My runner-up for this award is Devon Witherspoon, or Devin Witherspoon, however it's pronounced. I still haven't figured it out. I think the commissioner on draft night said Devin Witherspoon, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
I think. But I don't know. I feel like the way it's spelled is Devon. Whatever.
Yeah.
Witherspoon, corner from Seattle. He was the 5th overall pick out of Illinois, considered the top corner prospect. For him, he is going to be opposite of Tariq Woolen, who he himself had an incredible rookie season last year. Did he lead the league in picks, I think?
I'm trying to remember. I don't know for sure. That kind of sounds right.
Yeah, he was up there. If he didn't lead the league, he was up there. And so I just feel like now that Tariq Woolen is kind of established as like, oh, there's that ball hawking corner, I think Devon Witherspoon's going to see a lot of balls come his way, and he's going to have an opportunity to to have a really good stat line with seeing a lot of balls come his way. And so, to me, he was my runner-up. I think he should be able to have a really good season, especially just being opposite of a guy like Tariq Woolen.
Yeah, I really like that pick, and I like what you said. Considering that he's playing next to a guy like Tariq Woolen, who has already proven to be a ball hawk, I think that's a really good point. And I looked it up. So Tariq Woolen was tied with 4 players last year with 6 interceptions, which led the league. And that was C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Justin Simmons.
I feel like it's a low interception total for leading the league.
Yeah, that does seem low, a little bit low, but yeah, I like that pick a lot. It's really hard for corners to win an award like this because you just have to be super productive.
Absolutely.
And if you're a lockdown corner, you're usually not going to get that many targets.
Yeah.
Or maybe your production looks worse than you actually are.
That's the thing with Sauce Gardner, who actually was won the award last year. His stats are not like crazy, but it's like the tape. I mean, he's locking guys down.
Yeah, like his interception total wasn't very high.
Right.
And maybe voters will get smarter about that, or maybe voters are just going to look at interceptions, and if Witherspoon can rack up a bunch of interceptions as a rookie, maybe he'll be able to contend for this award. So my number 2 was Will Anderson Jr. Will Anderson Jr., great edge rusher prospect. The Texans traded up to get him in this year's draft, and what was just a mind-boggling move, in my opinion. I couldn't believe they made that decision. Wild trade to give up your 2024 first-round pick, and even more to get him. So they obviously love him, and he's going to be like the guy on that defensive line, in my opinion. And I think that he'll be in a great position to put up a lot of numbers year one, and he's super talented. He's going to start right off the bat. And I think that he'll be great as a run defender, and I think he'll be really good as a pass rusher. I think, maybe early on his specialty will be run defense, but if he can rack up a nice number of sacks, I think he'll easily be in contention for this award.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into my winner, because my winner is actually Will Anderson Jr. I agree with everything you said. I think he's going to be a guy that's, if he's not a double-digit sack guy, he'll probably, be like an 8-9 sack guy. He's just going to have, I feel like a lot of the times, the top drafted edge rusher just wins the award.
Yeah.
A lot of times this is what happens. Eyes are going to be on him. It's going to be a lot easier for voters to say, oh, yeah, he was the number 3 draft pick. And stat line's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's my defensive rookie of the year, And so I do expect him to have a good season too. He's a talented pass rusher, though not as talented as like the best edge rushers that we've had in previous classes.
Yeah.
But still a talented pass rusher. I expect like somewhere between like 8 and 10 sacks for him.
Yeah, I'd be kind of surprised if it was bad. Now, I don't think that he'll be like elite right off the bat.
Oh, for sure.
Just because I was lower on him than a lot of people were prior to the draft. I know a lot of people saw him as like maybe potentially a generational prospect.
Yeah, no.
And I just didn't see that in him. I just don't think he's like explosive enough as an athlete to deserve that title. But he is very good all around. Like his run defense is great, and so I think he'll have a good rookie year, even if the sack totals don't reflect that. Like I think he's a guy that's going to be better on the field than he is on the stat sheet. If you're just looking at sacks, tackles for loss, stuff like that. So I think he's going to be really good as a rookie, even if he isn't elite. And my winner was Jalen Carter.
Okay.
When I was picking my winner for this award, I was considering Will Anderson Jr. or Jalen Carter as my winner. And Jalen Carter, I think Jalen Carter is just a better player than Will Anderson. That's one reason why I lean more towards Jalen Carter. I also think one thing that gives Jalen Carter an advantage is that he is playing alongside better teammates. I think there's a chance that the opponents will be able to kind of zero in on Will Anderson when they're, game planning and in terms of how they're setting up their blocking scheme. With Jalen Carter, he's not going to face that because he's playing next to Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, and Josh Sweat. And also, the backups on the Eagles' defensive line are also good. So I think that he's going to face he's going to play a lot of snaps where he's going one-on-one against the guard. And in those like on those plays, he's gonna eat. He's gonna destroy his opponents because he's just too good. He's too explosive, too strong. It is gonna be harder for a defensive tackle to win this award than an edge rusher because it is easier to produce as an edge rusher than a defensive tackle. But I don't think that's a big problem with voters. I mean, we've seen Aaron Donald win the Defensive Player of the Year award a ton. Chris Jones was in contention a year ago. So it's not impossible for a defensive tackle to contend for an award like this. And I think Jalen Carter is good enough to contend for it. I think the one argument or one strong argument against him is that he is playing alongside other great teammates.
Yeah.
So it may be hard for him to be productive
That was
playing alongside them. So I think that would be the main argument against him.
Yeah, that was my one holdup with putting him on my list, was just that, number one, he's an interior defensive lineman. It's harder to put up like paper stats as an interior defensive lineman. He's also on probably the best defensive line in the NFL, and not that he's going to be necessarily a rotational player, but there's a lot of guys that are going to get playing time, and he's going to have to kind of find a role. I mean, if he's as good as I think we all think he is and know that he can be, he will just be like, hey, I'm on the field all the time, and he has a good chance. I'm just worried about there being so much talent on that defensive line that he kind of just is one of those guys in the mix and is not necessarily like every down player.
Yeah, and the Eagles are Super Bowl contenders. Like literally one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. So they're not trying to develop a rookie. They're trying to win games and win a championship.
Exactly.
So that's another thing that could prevent him from being productive, especially if he, has a sluggish start.
Yeah.
Let's see. Talk about your sleepers here.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of guys that I wanted to bring up, and I know we both have one guy that we really like. I'll talk about him next, but the first guy that I want to talk about is Emmanuel Forbes, the corner for the Washington Commanders out of Mississippi State. He was kind of a surprise pick. I think they picked him at 16. I don't think anybody really expected him to be picked that high, but he was second corner 2 off the board. He's the second corner taken. He's a super long, rangy, ball hawking corner, and so he's just one of those guys, sort of similar to with Devon Witherspoon. He's got a good chance to put up numbers. Not necessarily that he's going to be like this shutdown corner, but he is a ball hawk, and so he has a good chance to put up a high interception total, which I think is going to be something that voters look at a little more than just, are you locking guys down consistently? But, you had, 6 interceptions, that's my defensive rookie of the year. So he was a guy that I kind of had as a sleeper, albeit he is a first rounder. I don't know how much of a sleeper you can be if you're really in the first round, but nobody's really talking about him for defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I would say that even though he was a first round pick, he is a sleeper for this award.
Yeah.
Because I doubt you'll hear anybody say that.
Oh, for sure.
That he could be in contention for it. And he's the guy that I thought about. I don't really know why I didn't list him, but he was definitely a guy I had my eye on because he's a ball hawk. He was a ball hawk in college. And he should be the corner 2 in Washington.
Yeah, I think behind Kendall Fuller.
Yeah, so he should start right away.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to get a lot of playing time. And if he racks up a lot of interceptions, like you said, he's going to be in contention for this award. And with his play style, that's definitely possible. Yeah. So I like that pick a lot. I think he is definitely a sleeper for this award.
Yeah, the next guy I wanted to talk about is a guy that we had kind of talked about in our AFC episode, and that's Will McDonald, the edge rusher for the New York Jets. He was also another guy that was drafted, I think, a lot earlier than people expected. But this is just like a super athletic, twitchy edge rusher who I think has a chance to have a lot of production on a Jets team that does have a really talented defense.
Yeah, we both listed him as a sleeper. And I think we both are big fans of Will McDonald. Just like you said, freak athlete, super bendy pass rusher. It'll be really interesting to see how much he plays as a rookie because I just don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know how many opportunities he's going to get.
They have a big rotation of guys, and if he had a clear path to like, oh, he's gonna be he's gonna be on the field a lot, then I probably would have had him in one of, like my 2 spot.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, is that they have, Carl Lawson, they have John Franklin Myers, they have even
they have Quentin Williams.
yeah, I'm trying to remember the
Quentin
edge rusher's name that they drafted in the first round
Jermaine
from Florida
Johnson.
State. Yeah, Jermaine Johnson. They have Jermaine Johnson as well, who was not necessarily great as a rookie, but we'll see how he is in year 2. So he does have a lot of guys that he's going to have to play over if he's going to get a lot of playing time.
Yeah, like their defensive line is stacked, so he may not get that many snaps.
Yeah.
Like you'd hope, but if he does, I think he could dominate year
for sure.
one. He's just a freak athlete. So we both had him listed as a sleeper. A sleeper I had was B.J. Ojulari, a super talented player, freak athlete, kind of like Will McDonald in some ways, like just a super athletic pass rusher. And he's playing in Arizona, who, if you haven't looked at their depth chart,
Yeah.
go ahead, look at their front 7. You're back. All right, yeah, I know you just threw up. It's bad. It's rough. Not very good. Right now, Ourlads has him listed as a backup. If that's the case, that might be a bad sign for B.J. Ojulari, but I think he could easily start because their outside linebackers at the moment are Myjai Sanders and Cameron Thomas. I think B.J. Ojulari is good enough to start ahead of them.
He should.
And if he does start as a rookie, he could be super productive. Now, I know not like he wasn't this highly touted prospect coming out, but I think he's really good. I think he is an awesome pass rusher, has a lot of potential. Maybe he isn't productive as a rookie, but if given the opportunity, I think he could be.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
All right. Now we can move on from the defensive rookie of the years and the offensive rookie of the years, and we can move on to the big boys.
Oh, yeah.
And we can start off with the offensive player of the year. Go ahead. Who's your runner-up?
Absolutely. So my runner-up is actually going to be Travis Kelce, tight end for the Chiefs. Probably the best tight end in the league. You can debate.
You don't have to say probably.
Yeah, to me, he's the best tight end in the league. You can debate it if you want to talk about like, oh, well, he's not the best overall tight end. He's not a great blocker. I don't care.
If you want to be wrong,
yeah,
you can debate it.
I don't care.
It's
Dude could be one of the best receivers in the league if we were just talking about general receiving production.
Yeah.
So for him this year, it's another year where the receiving core for the Chiefs is just kind of lacking. Ever since they've lost Tyreek Hill, they just haven't had that like true number 1 guy. You don't really know who it's going to be this year. A lot of people think it's going to be Kadarius Toney. They still have Sky Moore, who they drafted last year. Also, sleeper Justin Ross, who I've been hearing good things about. Loved him coming out of Clemson. Unfortunately, injuries for him have kind of made his career rocky. But hearing that he's playing with like the first team in training camp, so it's a good sign. Anyways, back to Travis Kelce. He is just clearly Mahomes' number 1 option. And for a quarterback as talented as Patrick Mahomes and a tight end as talented as Kelce, they're just going to put up numbers. They always do every year. So Kelce would be my runner-up.
Yeah, I love that pick. He's going to dominate the production in that offense. Like, he's going to get a ridiculous amount of targets.
Yeah.
And, like, the stats could be unreal.
Yeah.
Remember a few years ago when he was up for the Offensive Player of the Year? When the year I think it was Devontae Adams who won it. And I'm pretty sure that he was the runner-up. That year, he put up unreal numbers.
For some reason, I was thinking that he won the award a couple years ago, but maybe I'm thinking of the year that he was runner-up.
I'm pretty sure that Devontae Adams won it that year.
I think you're right, because I do remember.
But yeah, like his numbers that year were ridiculous, and I think he could replicate that kind of season. Just because he's not going to have that much, competition for targets in that offense. Getting off track here. Could Travis Kelce possibly become the GOAT tight end at the end of his career?
He could, man.
Because his numbers are nuts. And his peak seasons are unreal from a receiving perspective for tight ends.
Yeah, if he has a few more years of like really good production, he's going to be statistically in very similar conversations with Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah.
I know right now he's still behind Gonzalez in pretty much everything, but yeah, just because he's consistently doing it, I could see him maybe making the leap over Gonzalez, and also Gronk to me. Gronk would have easily been the GOAT tight end if he hadn't been so injury prone to me.
Yeah.
But Kelsey's a monster, man. I looked it up. He was actually apparently 4th for offensive player of the year that year.
Was that 20?
It was 2020.
2020?
It was 2020. Yeah, he had a crazy year. 1,400 receiving yards as a tight end and 11 touchdowns.
Because I remember thinking that he should have won the award. Just because he was so much better than everyone else at his position. And also he was super productive. So I was like, it should be either Devontae Adams or Travis Kelce.
Yeah, he was so crazy that year.
But yeah, back to this. Yeah, I think Travis Kelce is a great pick.
Yeah.
If he can replicate the production that he had in 2020,
absolutely,
I think he'll be in the conversation. My number 2 is, in my opinion, probably the best receiver in the league.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, who won the award last year. That's the main reason why I didn't put him at number 1, is because he's already won the award.
Sure.
And it's going to be hard for him to replicate what he did last year. Because last year he had, I think, 1,800 receiving yards, which is ridiculous. By the way, if you want to see another all-time great player, look at Justin Jefferson's Pro Football Reference page. It's nuts. This dude is like on pace to potentially be the greatest receiver we've ever seen. This dude is awesome. And I think he's going to continue to be productive. He doesn't really have that much competition in that offense. They did just draft Jordan Addison, but Jordan Addison is a rookie. So there's no telling what his opportunities are going to look like year 1. And besides Jordan Addison, they do have TJ Hawkinson. I'm trying to pull up their depth chart and I can't find the team. I'm just blind here. But besides TJ Hawkinson, I don't think they have a lot of great receiving options. They're going to be without Dalvin Cook, so I think they're going to rely heavily on Justin Jefferson. And I think he's going to put up video game numbers once again. So
yeah.
It may be hard for him to win the award this year, considering he won it last year, but Justin Jefferson is just an all-time great talent, and I think he'll be in contention for this award for forever.
For sure. His trajectory on his Pro Football Reference is kind of crazy. As a rookie, so essentially every single year he has added 20 catches and 200 yards to his previous season. So as a rookie, he had 90 catches for 1,400 yards, then went up to 110 and 1,600, and then last year 130 and 1,800. So if we're following the trajectory here, next year he's going to have 150 catches and 2,000 receiving yards.
Yeah. Can you possibly add up his 3 years?
Yeah, it's he had on total it's 4,825 receiving yards on his career so far, and he has 325 catches.
How many yards per game is that?
I can look. Let's see. 96.5 yards per game.
I'm looking at Jerry Rice's first 3 years as from 1985 to 1987.
Yeah.
200 total catches, 3,575 yards, and 40 total touchdowns, and that's 81.3 yards per game.
Wow. You said 40 total touchdowns, though, in the first 3 years?
Receiving, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Justin Jefferson only has 25 in his first 3, but that's crazy.
And 17.9 yards per reception for Jerry Rice.
Wow.
Which is crazy because I think his peak years, some of them are lower yards per reception, which is usually what you see from more slot types or guys who are running shorter routes. So, he was super productive early on. And Justin Jefferson has averaged more yards on a per-game basis than Jerry Rice through their first 3 seasons.
It's crazy.
That's how good Justin Jefferson is. Now back to the program. Yeah, that's my runner-up. What do you think about Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, dude, he's great. As we said, great receiver, probably the best in the game.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and get to my winner, who honestly, I probably would have put Justin Jefferson, but I wanted to bring some different guys into the mix so we could talk about some different folks. So I have my winner, Tyreek Hill, wide receiver for the Dolphins. who actually has won the award, hasn't he?
I don't know for sure.
I believe with the
I actually thought
Chiefs.
so. I actually thought that Tyreek Hill deserved it last year.
Yeah.
Both he and Jefferson were deserving. It's not like Jefferson winning it was a crime against humanity. But I did think that Tyreek Hill deserved it last year. Super productive on a really good offense while playing next to Jalen Waddle, who was also super productive. And I don't think Tyreek Hill has ever won the award.
Yeah, he is not. So he was actually 4th for the award last year. Okay, so he has not won the award yet. I will say he said on his podcast, I don't know if you heard, that this year he was going to be the first 2,000-yard receiver.
And I'm ready for it.
He did say that. He said it on his podcast. I didn't know what to expect with him going to Miami, but he had his best season to date, probably, at least in terms of receiving yards.
Yeah, it was unreal.
Yeah, and so I expect him to build upon this. I know, like, it's kind of like, oh, well, he's got Jalen Waddle there. I will say Jalen Waddle's a fantastic receiver, but a lot of Jalen Waddle's production is also coming from, like, Tyreek Hill's on the other side. Like, let's focus on Tyreek. Then Jalen's open. Then, okay, well, let's focus on Jalen Waddle. Tyreek's open. You just can't win against this Miami offense. It's insane.
Yeah.
And Mike McDaniel is a great play caller. If Tua can stay healthy, I mean, you're going to see a ton of production from Tyreek Hill. So, for me, that is my winner. I guess let's get into some sleepers.
Actually, I gotta name my winner.
Oh, you got your winner.
first.
I'm sorry.
You're good. No, you're good. But yeah, like before we get to my winner, I love the Tyreek Hill pick. I think that's a great pick.
Yeah.
I think he is another guy with a case to be the best receiver in football.
Yeah.
Dude's a stud. Now on to my winner. I've got the guy who can never stay healthy, Christian McCaffrey.
Hey, last year though.
If McCaffrey can stay healthy, which he did last year, he can be incredible. He got traded from the Panthers to the 49ers last season, and he was unbelievable in San Francisco. And he looked like the best running back in football in San Fran. They use him so well, and he was dominant at times in Kyle Shanahan's offense. If he can do that again, I think he will have a great shot at winning this award. I'm not sure if he's ever won the award before.
He hasn't. His highest finish was in 2019. He finished 3rd in Offensive Player of the Year. He led the league in yards from scrimmage with 2,300 or almost 2,400 yards from scrimmage. And he had, and that was an insane year in 2019 with Carolina. Had almost 1,400 rushing yards with 15 rushing touchdowns. And then also on top of that had 1,000 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns.
Wow, that's crazy. 1,000 receiving yards. I wonder how many running backs have done that. That'd be interesting. But yeah,
I know like Marshall Faulk.
Yeah, Marshall
has.
Faulk.
I don't know how many others have.
Yeah, but yeah, that's crazy. McCaffrey is just an awesome runner and receiver. Like I said earlier, I compared Jahmyr Gibbs to McCaffrey because they're both great receivers. Like Christian McCaffrey is an all-time great receiving back. And if he can get back to those levels of production, or if he can really just replicate what he did with San Francisco last year over an entire season, I think he's going to be in contention for this award. Just super productive. Has been every time he's been healthy. He's been incredible. So if he can get another healthy season next year, I think he'll potentially win the Offensive Player of the Year award.
Absolutely. All right, so I'll go ahead and get into my sleeper. My sleeper for Offensive Player of the Year. I feel like I had to kind of think hard about this one.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to get a guy who is like an established star in the NFL. So I actually went with Tony Pollard, the running back for the Dallas Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott is now gone. It is Tony Pollard's backfield now. And he had a really good year last year, even having to split carries and just playing time with Zeke. I mean, last year in 2022, he had 1,007 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns on top of having almost 400 receiving yards. And that's essentially as the backup running back. He touched the ball less than 200 times, so I think you can expect that number to go way up. And yeah, I mean, he was pretty special last year, and that was, having to split the backfield. So I'm expecting a pretty big year from Tony Pollard. We'll see if it's enough to get him in the Offensive Player of the Year contention, but I think he's going to have a great year.
Yeah, I think that is an excellent pick. Last year, he was one of the most efficient runners in the league last year. I think also as a catcher. Like, he's just a really productive player playing alongside Zeke. Now that he is the main guy in that offense, I think he's going to be incredible. So I absolutely love that pick. Now for my sleepers, I actually had two guys. My first guy was Nick Chubb.
Okay.
Nick Chubb. I know he's one of the top running backs in the league, but I think the Browns could be really good next year potentially, especially on offense. Depending on how Deshaun Watson plays.
It's crazy to me that Chubb's never been in the contention for Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, and
last year was actually probably his best year. I didn't even realize that.
What were the numbers?
So last year he carried the ball over 300 times, which was the most that he's ever carried the ball in his career. It's actually the only year he's had so far with over 300 carries.
Yeah.
And he had 1,500 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns. I mean, he's never been like a great receiving back. It's just not his thing. But he had 250 receiving yards. I mean, not great, but for him, like, who's just like a pure bruising running back, solid.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that if the Browns offense, can play to their talent, that can be pretty good. And if they're really good, they're going to put up ridiculous numbers. And I think Nick Chubb is going to be a huge benefactor of that. I think he's going to, have a ton of rushing touchdowns potentially. And if that's the case, if their offense is a lot better than it was last year, I think Nick Chubb could have a very productive season. My next sleeper was CeeDee Lamb, who had an underrated season last year. He was top 6 among all players in total yards from scrimmage. Or maybe it was total yards from scrimmage per game. I'm actually looking it up right now. But last year he was super productive, and he doesn't really have that much competition in Dallas. They did trade for Brandon Cooks, and during the offseason, right? Was that during the offseason?
Yeah, it was during the offseason.
And so they have Brandon Cooks in that offense now, but still, like, I think that he's going to have a great opportunity to put up ridiculous numbers once again. Just had a super productive season last year. He's playing in a really good offense in Dallas with a good quarterback in Dak Prescott. Now they don't have Zeke, so maybe they aren't going to run as much. Maybe they're going to be a little more pass heavy. We'll see. But yeah, he was an incredible player last year. Super productive. And I think he actually was 6th in receiving yards per game. Actually, no, he was 8th in receiving yards per game. So had a super productive season last year. And I think he could be even more productive next year as he develops, and depending on how the Cowboys decide to run their offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yep, that's it for Offensive Player of the Year. And actually, we're going to take a break real quick, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back. We just finished off the Offensive Player of the Year award, our picks for the runner-up, the winner, and the sleepers. Now we're going to get into the Defensive Player of the Year award. And Thomas, you can go ahead and get started with your picks.
Yeah, absolutely. So my runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year is T.J. Watt. Name speaks for itself. His brother JJ obviously was a great player, and TJ has become a great player in his own right. In the span of 2019 to 2021, he finished in the top 3 for Defensive Player of the Year voting every single year. He won the award in 2021, was 2nd in 2020, and was 3rd in 2019. So he's been on a tear of like being one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Last year, unfortunately, got hurt. So he's another guy we might even could mention for Comeback Player of the Year. But he is a guy that has just been super productive over his career, and I see no reason for him to not be incredibly productive again in 2023.
Yeah, he's been so productive the last couple of years. It's been ridiculous.
Yeah.
And his brother TJ, you brought him up. Dude's ridiculous. If you look at his like peak seasons in Houston, it's unreal.
Yeah.
Like he leads like in terms of like sacks per game, tackles for loss per game.
Yeah.
Like he leads like I think edge rushers in every category.
Oh yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yep.
He's super good. Do you think he's gonna be a first ballot Hall of Famer?
JJ Watt?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, he should be.
I don't know. What
why
do you think the
be.
consensus of opinion would be on
I would
that?
say yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like for JJ Watt, like he had a year where he almost won MVP.
Yeah, I didn't. I
remember
didn't
that?
know what like most people thought about him in his career
Yeah,
because
what
I
year
think
was
he.
that?
I think he should easily be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
It was 2014 where he almost won MVP. He had 20 and a half sacks, and he lost MVP to Aaron Rodgers that year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It was Aaron Rodgers.
That was the Aaron Rodgers, and that's ridiculous to be in contention for the MVP as an edge rusher in
Yeah.
the modern NFL.
Yeah, he won Defensive Player of the Year. He won that 3 times.
That's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, he's a stud. And TJ Watt is a stud as well. Super productive. One of the best edge rushers in the NFL. I think that's a great pick.
Oh,
I
yeah,
love that.
absolutely.
When he's fully healthy, it seems like he's going to be a shoe in.
And that's the thing. So, like, I feel like for Defensive Player of the Year, it's kind of difficult unless you just have an incredible season for anybody other than an edge rusher
yeah.
to win the award. And so I feel like right now in the league, there are 4 edge rushers that are kind of all in their own tier. And it's like that top tier. And we're going to talk about all 4 of them because
Yeah.
I looked at yours and you had put 2 of them. So I was like, well, you know what? Might as well just put the other 2.
Yeah.
And you can't go wrong.
Yeah, and it's crazy how much talent there is at the edge rusher position in today's NFL. Like, it's ridiculous.
It is insane.
And that leads into my runner-up,
Yeah.
the Micah Parsons.
Oh, absolutely.
It just seems like eventually Micah Parsons is going to win a Defensive Player of the Year award.
Yeah.
I feel like at some point it's going to happen.
For sure.
I'm not quite sure it's going to be this year, though, because there's another player that I think's another edge rusher that I think is extremely good as well. But Micah Parsons has had a ridiculous start to his career. Like as a rookie in 2021, he had 13 sacks. Last year he had 13 and a half. He had 30 quarterback hits as a rookie, 26 last year. He's been one of the best edge rushers in the NFL from the get-go.
Yeah.
He's just stupid good. And it won't surprise me whatsoever if he wins the award this year. But for me, I have him as a runner-up. We'll see where he finishes.
Absolutely. All right, getting into my winner. So mine is Nick Bosa, edge rusher for the 49ers. Dude is just a stud. And I think him and your winner, who I'm sure most of our listeners can guess who that is if you know ball at all, or even if you're just a casual fan.
Yeah, you're just calling him out.
Really.
If you know
ball. Yeah. So I feel like it's kind of like 1A, 1B between Nick Bosa and your winner, who we'll get to in a second. And then it's like 2A, 2B between Micah Parsons and TJ Watt. But yeah, Nick Bosa, he did win the award last year. So it's sometimes a little difficult to win those awards twice in a year, or twice in a row, excuse me. Very difficult to win those awards twice in a year.
That's really hard.
Borderline impossible.
No one's ever done it.
Anyways, last year, Bosa had 18 and a half sacks, led the NFL in sacks. Just had an insane year. And, it's not going to stop. He's just going to keep going, He's an incredibly talented pass rusher, can make an argument that he's the best edge in the league. So
Yeah. And he hasn't even reached his prime yet.
Yeah,
he's only 25.
Yeah, it's
So,
crazy.
he'll
be 26 in this upcoming season.
He could possibly get better, which is ridiculous. Like, you mentioned, had 18 and a half sacks last year, won the Defensive Player of the Year award, and was very deserving. He had a crazy year last year, so I think that's a great pick. Like you mentioned that it's hard to win this award twice in a row, so I'm not quite sure he'll win it again. Like, he'd probably have to be even better.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Now, for me, my winner is, as you can probably guess if you're listening, Myles Garrett, edge rusher for the Cleveland Browns. He has also not won the award yet, like Micah Parsons, correct?
Really? He hasn't won it yet?
Has he not won it? I don't think he's won it.
Okay, no, he hasn't won it yet. That's crazy. I thought he had won it.
No, he hasn't won it yet. And I feel like his time's coming too, like I mentioned with Micah Parsons. Myles Garrett has been ridiculously productive in the NFL. And I feel like people underrate just how good he's been. Like, I'm not quite sure people realize how dominant Myles Garrett is, but he is ridiculous. The last, that's 5 years, going back to 2018, he has had double-digit sack totals each season.
Yeah.
Like, the consistency is crazy.
Yeah, the only season he hasn't had double-digit sacks was his rookie year, and he only started 9 games that year.
and had
and
7
only played
sacks.
in 11 and had 7 sacks.
Like, this is a good rookie year.
Yeah.
So yeah, Myles Garrett is ridiculous. And he's had 16 sacks back to back in 2021 and 2022. And I think that eventually he could get up there to 18 sacks where Nick Bosa was last year.
Yeah, I mean, he could get into the 20s.
Maybe even 20, potentially. So yeah, I just think he's a dominant pass rusher. And I think that at some point, it would not surprise me if he wins the Defensive Player of the Year award. And that could be next year. And I've already mentioned that I'm higher on the Browns than a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that I think they could be good. And if they're good next year, I think that Myles Garrett will be a huge part of that.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and get into my sleepers for Defensive Player of the Year. And for these two guys that I'm about to mention, I hate that I even have to call them sleepers.
Yeah.
Because they are probably the two best corners in the league. It's just, you have to have a spectacular season at corner to win the award, just because there's so much talent at edge, and edge rushers fill up the stat sheet a little more than great corners typically. And so my two sleepers are Patrick Surtain, of the Denver Broncos, and Sauce Gardner of the New York Jets. Sauce Gardner last year as a rookie was arguably the best corner in the league, which is insane. Dude is phenomenal. I don't expect any drop off from him. Patrick Surtain is also one of the best corners in the league. These two guys are probably going to be two of the best in the league for years to come because they're both super young. I don't know exactly how old Surtain is, but I think
Surtain should be 23, 24.
Yeah,
right?
Let's see.
I think that's right.
He is going to be 23 next season.
Wow.
Yeah, he'll be, so like he's already 23, but he doesn't turn 24 until April.
Okay.
And then Sauce is probably the same age, if I had to guess, right?
I think he's a year younger.
Okay, so he's about to be 23.
Yeah.
He'll be 23 in August.
Yeah.
So they're both going to be 23 this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it's hard to win this award as a corner. The last corner to do it was Stephon Gilmore. And I think before that, it was Charles Woodson in 2009.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's like
Did Revis ever win it?
No, he did not.
Wow.
He did not win it. Even in that one crazy year he had, which I think was 04 or 07. I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, it wouldn't have been, because he didn't get drafted till 07.
Okay, so
it was like, because it was like early 2010s when he had that like really crazy
Sorry,
year.
I'm just losing my mind then.
It's okay.
But yeah, like he had a year where he had 31 passes defended.
Yeah.
And he didn't win it that year. So
yeah, that was 09.
That was 09.
And he came in second for Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay. Yeah, it's really difficult. Like, it's incredibly difficult to win this award as a corner. You have to be really good. But
okay, so he lost the award in 09 to Charles Woodson.
Yeah, okay.
Crazy. Cool. Charles Woodson had a crazy 09.
What did he do?
He had 9 picks, 3 defensive touchdowns.
Wow.
Well, that's actually just interceptions returned for touchdowns. I can't even see like full defensive touchdowns. But yeah, he was insane and had 18 passes defended, which Darrell had 31, which is pretty crazy. But still, like 9 picks is going to get you the award.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I'll go ahead and name my sleepers.
Yeah.
I think my sleepers are fit the sleeper bill more than Patrick Surtain and Sauce Gardner. I'll get started with Jalen Phillips, a guy I am ridiculously high on.
Oh, dude, you've loved him since the day he was like coming out of Miami.
Bro, if like I will always ride or die for Jalen Phillips. If there are no Jalen Phillips fans in this world, I'm dead.
Yeah.
So,
truly.
Yeah, love this man. But last year he had a really good year, was one of the more productive pass rushers in the NFL. He's improving as a run defender. He's not an elite pass rusher yet, but he's getting there. He's young, super good athlete. I think if he continues to develop the way he's been developing, I think he could get there, and we'll see. And if he does continue to develop as a pass rusher and run defender, he could reach Defensive Player of the Year levels, in my opinion. But it may take a little bit more time, so maybe it isn't contending for this award next season. But I could definitely see him doing it down the road. And my next sleeper pick is Roquan Smith, linebacker for the Ravens. He changed, like, legitimately transformed the Ravens defense last year.
Oh yeah, I think we were just talking about it on the AFC episode about how awful they were until they traded for him, and then they became like a top 10 defense.
Yeah, like their defense was one of the worst in the NFL for the first like half the season, and then they traded for him around the deadline, I believe, and their defense immediately became a top 10 defense.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna be really hard to win this award as a linebacker. But the impact that Roquan Smith had last year is just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And if he can replicate that, and if he can anchor a top 10 defense and be super productive, like I think he could be in that conversation. Just the impact is crazy.
Yeah, it's just so hard as a linebacker because I mean we're talking about Roquan Smith as a sleeper, and he's one of the best linebackers in the league. He's probably the best linebacker in the AFC. I would say Fred Warner to me probably has a little bit of an edge over him and just best linebacker in the league. But Roquan Smith is a phenomenal linebacker, and we're talking about him like he's a sleeper.
Yeah.
Which I mean, same thing with like the corners. That's just how like defensive player of the year is now. It's like just feels like an edge award unless you have an insane corner season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's all our picks for the Defensive Player of the Year award. Are you ready to move on to the Comeback Player of the Year?
Oh yeah, this is the fun award to me.
This is really fun.
This is one of my favorite ones to predict.
For this one, we just did a winner in sleepers. We didn't do a runner up.
Yeah.
And that's, we both have the same winner. So you
Yeah,
can go ahead and introduce our winner for this award.
All right, so essentially, there's this guy. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name's Damar Hamlin, who had a incredibly terrifying injury last year for the Buffalo Bills, and just it's a miracle, honestly, that he's still alive. And I think Ryan and I both know if he steps on that football field at all next year, he's gonna win Comeback Player of the Year. Honestly, even if he doesn't, even if he just participates in team activities, he's probably gonna win Comeback Player of the Year. So we both have that because there's just no feasible way for our other guys to win it. And that's why I think we each have 3 sleepers that we want to talk about, just because they're not going to win the award just because Damar Hamlin exists. But in any other year, they would have good chances.
You have a sleeper. Oh my gosh. I can't wait for you to name him.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and name my first sleeper.
Okay.
And that's Breece Hall. So Breece Hall had an incredible rookie season. Like, he was awesome, and then tore his ACL, which sucks because I loved him so much as a prospect. But he was super productive while he was on the field, averaged over 90 yards from scrimmage per game when he was on the field as a rookie. Just super productive. So I think next year, playing in what should be a much better offense now that Aaron Rodgers is with the Jets, he could be very productive. And it's not like they have a ton of talent in their skill positions. They have Garrett Wilson. And other than that, it's not great. They do have, like, Alan Lazard is still there. Corey Davis is still there. So there's some talent, but not a lot, and not enough to make me believe that Breece Hall cannot be super productive in his first season coming back from a torn ACL. But that is something. Like, he is coming back from a torn ACL, so who knows? Maybe the production won't be there, but if it is, I think... And if Damar Hamlin, obviously doesn't step foot on the football field, Breece Hall could win the award. Now you can name your first sleeper.
Oh gosh, I know you're so ready for this. You hate this. Anyways, let's just get it out of the way. It's Deshaun Watson. Say what you will about the man. Yeah, look, here's the thing. I don't think that Deshaun Watson's necessarily an innocent man. I'm not even trying to say that. But he is now playing football again. He has served his suspension. He did his time, if you will. Okay, let's get into it a little bit. Because if we go back to 2020, the last full season that Deshaun Watson played before all of the drama went down. I mean, first it started with he didn't want to play with the Texans anymore, and he was like holding out, and then it obviously went into all these legal troubles that he's found himself in. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you have obviously been living under a rock. You can look it up. Deshaun Watson has been in severe legal trouble, but he served, he missed an entire year of football and then served
11 games.
11 game suspension.
Yeah.
Whatever. 2020 Deshaun Watson was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. You can argue with a wall. He was great. 4,800 passing yards, 33 touchdowns to 7 picks, 70% completion percentage. He was phenomenal in 2020 on a terrible team. I mean, they went 4-12. He is on the Browns. I know last year was rough, but I mean, he was suspended for 11 games, couldn't really work out with the team. Dude just came in and kind of had to do what he had to do. Now he has a full offseason with the Browns, some more chemistry with his teammates. I could see him having a really good year again. I mean, I would love to see Deshaun Watson return to form. Hopefully the legal issues are behind him now. Not trying to excuse what he did, but man, he's a good football player. I mean, I guess they said the same thing about Ben Roethlisberger. Oh,
This is funny to me because I think this is actually a solid non-Damar Hamlin pick.
Yeah.
But there's no shot that voters would ever vote for Deshaun Watson.
Okay, though,
I think even if he legitimately won MVP, I don't think they vote for him.
Maybe not.
But also, when you consider what the Comeback Player of the Year award is for, I think the description is
it's just a player coming back from adversity.
Yeah. So
that's adversity.
What is just think about it. What is Deshaun Watson coming back from? Being accused of sexually assaulting masseuses and sucking at football?
Yeah.
If he won this award, it would just be hilariously stupid.
Yeah.
He's coming back from adversity because of himself.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
it would just be very ironic if he won this award.
It would be. All right, your next guy would be my favorite if not for Damar Hamlin. I didn't put him on my list because I wanted to get some variety.
Yeah.
But the next guy you're about to talk about would be the favorite to me if Damar Hamlin did not exist.
Yeah, and the next guy on my list is Calvin Ridley, receiver for the Jaguars. Missed a season due to gambling, which has become a pretty big problem for the NFL.
Yeah.
Funny enough, he actually missed more time for gambling than Deshaun Watson did for being accused by over 20 women of sexual assault.
Crazy
move, NFL. But yeah, Calvin Ridley is going to be playing in a pretty good offense next season with Trevor Lawrence as the quarterback in Jacksonville. If he can, get back to form and get back to the way he was playing in Atlanta prior to his suspension, he can be pretty incredible because he was on his way to becoming a star in the NFL with the Falcons. He's super talented, was super productive in Atlanta, and he's playing with an up-and-coming superstar in Trevor Lawrence, a guy who is, in my opinion, on track to becoming an elite quarterback and one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And it's not like they have a ton of other receiving threats on that team. I mean, he could easily step in day one and be the wide receiver one for Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to make him super productive.
Especially all the buzz you're hearing from training camp is that, Calvin Ridley is just a dude. He's just killing everybody in training camp. Dude, I completely forgot, how old he was.
Yeah, I mean,
because he was an old rookie. He was 24 as a rookie.
I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Because he's going into his, he'll be 29 during the season.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's pretty crazy to me because he still feels like a young, quote unquote, young player. Yeah. Just because he only has 4 seasons under his belt.
To me, it feels like he's 26.
Yeah.
But
that's how old he should be. He has 4 seasons under his belt.
Yeah.
But crazy. Yeah, he's about to be, if he's not 29 already, he's going to be 29. Yeah, so he's 28 and he'll be 29 in December.
Okay. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, who's your next sleeper?
All right. So my next guy is, let him cook, Russell Wilson. quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Oh gosh, I was about to say kind of similar to Deshaun Watson, but not in that way.
Not in some ways very not like Deshaun Watson.
In the way of his adversity is that he sucked at football last year.
That's like Geno Smith last year.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Geno, he was great, but like he won the award, and the adversity he faced was that he was just not good at football.
Yeah, the adversity was that he was never good. With Russ, he has been good before. It's not like he's gonna have to have a breakout season at age 35. For Russ, gosh, that's kind of crazy that Russ is 35. Dang. Is that crazy to you?
Yeah, that is crazy.
He was also an old rookie. He came into the league at 24. Like, he was 24 as a rookie.
Man, if he has another bad season, get the retirement home ready.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Russ has been a borderline top 5 quarterback for a majority of his career.
Yeah.
Until last year, his first season with the Denver Broncos. They have a stacked team. There's so much hype. Oh man, Denver could come out of the AFC. They might make some noise in the AFC. And they absolutely sucked. They went 4-11. Russ was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. He had 16 touchdowns to 11 picks, only 60% completion percentage. He was just very bad last year. And I think that a lot of that could have to do with their head coach, who is Nathaniel Hackett. And if we're being real here, the Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett because not this offseason that we're in, but the last offseason, there was some talk about potentially the Packers moving Aaron Rodgers. And so they hired Nathaniel Hackett because they hoped that Aaron Rodgers would go to the Broncos. And then when it was obvious that Aaron Rodgers was just going to stay with the Packers, they had to go after another veteran, and they went for Russell Wilson, which seemed like a good move until he was awful. And again, I think a lot of that could have to do with Nathaniel Hackett's play calling. But now we're in a phase where Russell Wilson's not really going to have an excuse anymore. He's with Sean Payton, who's one of the greatest coaches that we've seen in the last, 20 years. And I'm like, it's go time. If you got anything left in the tank, this is going to be the year. So I think he has a really good chance to maybe bounce back to form. Not going to win comeback player of the year, because Damar Hamlin exists, as we've said, but without Damar Hamlin, he's in contention for sure.
Yeah, I think he's in contention as well. And you mentioned last year they tried to let him cook, and he cooked up like some like elementary school cafeteria food. Yeah, it was not good.
Hey, don't sleep on it.
The cooking was not very good. But yeah, I think under new head coach Sean Payton, he could be really, really good. Yeah. But he also there were a lot of veteran quarterbacks who struggled last season who were dealing with external issues, whether that be injury, like for Matthew Stafford, or off the field stuff, like with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And with Russell Wilson, he wasn't dealing with any of that. He kind of just looked like he was just worse at football.
Yeah.
So I am worried that maybe he just isn't.
He's just regressed.
Yeah, or maybe he's just regressed, which is natural. He's 35. Maybe this is just the end of the road for Russell Wilson, or perhaps he has a bounce back season, and in that case, I think he could be in contention for this award. So I like that pick.
Because even in 2021, his last year with Seattle, he wasn't like great. I mean, he was good. He had 3,100 passing yards. He only started 14 games for some reason. He must have had an injury. Excuse me. Had 25 touchdowns and 6 picks, which is a really good ratio. But the year before was it was like the year where at the first half of the season in 2020, it was like, ooh, this could be Russ's MVP year, and then he fell off. But 4,200 passing yards, 40 touchdowns, and 13 picks, pretty solid year. So, we'll see if he can ever get back to that, but I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, and my last sleeper is a guy who, gosh, I was ridiculously high, and literally everyone was ridiculously high on prior to the 2020 draft, and that's Chase Young, who's had a pretty disappointing career. Not all his fault. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. Had a solid rookie season in 2020 with 7.5 sacks and 10 tackles for loss, but has dealt with a lot of injuries since then. In 2021, he played just 9 games, and in 2022, he played just 3 games. So he's played 27 games throughout his short career, and it only has 9 sacks. And Washington is not picking up his fifth-year option, which is shocking considering how good he was in college, but he's dealt with a lot of injuries. You can't blame him. I'm hoping that the talent finally shows again and that he can stay healthy, play a full season. Because if he can, I think he can be like one of the better edge rushers in the NFL. We just haven't been able to see that because of injuries, which is unfortunate. So I don't think Chase Young is a great sleeper pick. I think it's more likely than not that he isn't going to have a bounce back year and be great. But he is a guy that I think it could happen. And if he does stay healthy, we could see his production take a big jump. And maybe that's good enough for him to be in contention for the Comeback Player of the Year award.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last of our Comeback Player of the Year players is Rashawn Gary, the edge rusher for the Green Bay Packers. Last year, unfortunately, in the middle of the season, tore his ACL, derailed what was looking like a decent season for him, had 6 sacks through 9 games, and so he's going to be bouncing back from an ACL injury this season. And before 2022, I think in 21, don't quote me on this, but I think he led the league in pressures. Or at least was like, I know he was top 5 in the league in like pressures.
Yeah, he was top 5. I think he definitely wasn't number 1, but he was top 5.
He was very high. I think he was top 5. I know that. He was top 5 in pressures in the NFL. So he's been a very promising pass rusher for several years. Unfortunately, last year it felt like, oh, maybe this is going to be the breakout year. Unfortunately, tore his ACL in early November and was done for the year. So hopefully, maybe this year we see a bounce back season from him. We can finally see if he can have a double-digit sack season.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm a huge fan of Rashawn Gary, have been for a few years. Seeing him get hurt last year sucked. I've got all the Rashawn Gary stock. It's all with me. There's none available. Sorry, guys. Y'all missed your chance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Rashawn Gary, and I love this pick. Hopefully he can stay healthy, because when he was healthy, he was dominant the last time we saw him.
All right, let's get into our second to last award, Coach of the Year. Do you want to start with the sleepers, or you want to just go ahead into our winners?
What do you want to do?
I figure we'll start with the sleepers, because with this one we only have sleepers and a winner. Similar to the Comeback Player of the Year. So I'll go ahead and start with my sleepers for Coach of the Year. And both of these guys are in the same division in football. That is the NFC South, which is one of the weaker divisions in the NFL this year. And that is actually why I have them listed as Coach of the Year, as sleepers for Coach of the Year. And that is Dennis Allen, the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, and Frank Reich, the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Carolina and New Orleans are both in positions where they could probably be better than they should be, just because they're in a weaker division. And I know you also have a guy in your sleepers that from the same division. I'm sure it's for the same reason, because it's just a weak division this year. And especially with Dennis Allen, I think he has more of a chance than Frank Reich. Frank Reich's more of like a deep sleeper. But with Dennis Allen, like, they have a pretty solid team. I mean, Derek Carr coming in at quarterback. You have, if Michael Thomas is healthy, he's a great receiver if he can come back to form. Chris Olave showed so much as a rookie last year. Obviously, Kamara apparently is not going to get suspended, so he's going to be there. Jamal Williams. I mean, they just have a good roster. And they should, to me, pretty easily win the NFC South. So I could see Dennis Allen maybe getting some Coach of the Year looks, just because he hasn't really done a lot and he has a chance to, have a winning season. And then with Frank Reich as well, I mean, Carolina was bad last year. They were able to trade up to the number 1 pick because they were bad and they have a lot of assets. And so you see a lot of Coach of the Year awards when a coach comes in and takes a really bad team and improves them a lot. You saw it with like Kevin Stefanski when he came to the Browns his first year. He won Coach of the Year because they were a terrible team, and then all of a sudden they were in the playoffs with Baker Mayfield. And so I could see something similar with Frank Reich, maybe not quite to like, oh, he's in the playoffs, but I think that's my deep sleeper at least.
Yeah, I love those picks. I actually thought about listing Dennis Allen as one of my sleepers. I think that's an excellent pick. I think the Saints are probably going to win the NFC South. They have a really good team, a really talented roster, and they could win double-digit games.
Yeah.
And I think that could potentially put him in contention for the award. So I like that pick a lot. And you mentioned like coaches that have taken really bad teams and improved them a lot in 1 year. Those kind of coaches tend to be up for this award. We saw a guy like that last year in Brian Dable with
Yeah.
the Giants, who actually won the award.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good pick. For my first sleeper, I picked Robert Saleh for the New York Jets. They have Aaron Rodgers now, and if Aaron Rodgers can play like he's shown he can play when fully healthy and when surrounded by good NFL talent, he can play at an MVP level. He won back-to-back MVPs in 2020 and 2021, I believe. That's correct.
Yes. Correct.
And then, they have Garrett Wilson, who's coming into his second season, who was awesome as a rookie. He'll have Breece Hall back. He already has one of the top defenses in the NFL. This team could be really good.
Oh, yeah. And they honestly should be really good. They had no business winning as many games as they did last year. They just had a phenomenal defense.
Yeah. So, if their offense steps it up and can, not match what their defense is going to do, because their defense is going to be insane. But if their offense can be, pretty good, and at least...
Even if their offense can be an average offense, they should be a good team.
Yeah, they should be a pretty good team and can potentially win double-digit games. And in that case, I think he'll be up for the award. My other sleeper was Arthur Smith. If you're listening to this podcast, yes, I am saying something good about Arthur Smith. It's rare. Clip this, screen record it. It's happening. But yeah, I think the Falcons... I feel like I'm pretty high on the Falcons, I guess. I just don't think they're going to be bad. If they're terrible, I'd be kind of surprised. Just because I think their defense is going to be a lot better. I think their run game should be incredible. If their run game... That's the one thing I'm most confident about this team. Their run game should be amazing.
And we talked about it a little earlier with Bijan Robinson. I mean, one of the best run-blocking offensive lines in the NFL. And on top of that, they have Bijan Robinson. They have Tyler Algier, who was a 1,000-yard rusher last year. And they have Cordero Patterson, who's one of the better receiving backs in the league.
Yeah. And I think this team is good. I think there's a cap on how good they can be, but I could easily see them winning the division and even overperforming like the Giants did last year. I think this Falcons team is built similarly to the Giants.
Oh, yeah.
But I think they're even better.
Yeah.
I think their roster's better. And so I could see them overperforming a lot and having a pretty good record. And in that case, I think Arthur Smith would be up for the award. So I think I really like Arthur Smith as a sleeper pick.
Yeah, that's very solid. All right, so I'll go ahead and get into my winner for Coach of the Year.
It's a shocker.
Yeah, I know. If you've heard me talk about this team's quarterback before, you know how much I love him. So I'll go ahead and give some love to the coach as well, Andy Reid. I have Andy Reid as my Coach of the Year. And honestly, for the very reason that I just talked about, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. I think he will be every year until he dies.
If there's a non-Patrick Mahomes best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes is dead.
Yeah.
He's not alive.
Absolutely. Anyway, I mean, Andy Reid is just, he's been a great head coach. Another one of those guys, like I said with Sean Payton, one of the best head coaches of the last 20 years. Yeah, I mean, he's got Mahomes, man. He's got Mahomes. There's nothing more to say.
Yeah. They're going to be a great team.
Yeah.
And they're going to be awesome. They have Patrick Mahomes. That's really it. Their defense.
I mean, Kelsey. They have Mahomes and Kelsey. That's all they need. And a great offensive line. Yeah. Mahomes, Kelsey, and a great offensive line. Super Bowl.
Yeah. Their defense was just average last year, and their pass catchers were not that great. And they still won the championship. So, yeah, I like this pick a lot. And I feel like we both went a similar route with our winners. I picked Nick Sirianni, head coach for the Eagles. I think the Eagles are the best team in the league, the best roster.
For sure, yeah. I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I think that I would pick the Eagles to beat the Chiefs in a game, just because Patrick Mahomes is that good. But just looking at the roster from top to bottom, I think it's the best in the league. And this is one of the better rosters I can ever remember. I mean, it's ridiculously good. Like they're one of the better teams I've seen in recent memory. They're just super good. They have an MVP caliber quarterback in Jalen Hurts. He was up for the MVP award last year. They have two like insanely talented receivers in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. AJ Brown really elite, and Devontae Smith was super productive last year. I think he was more productive than people realize. They also have an elite offensive line. They're gonna have a good run game because they got DeAndre Swift in the offseason, and they got the Rashad Penny, running back from the Seahawks, and their defense is elite. They didn't lose too many pieces on defense, so I think they're gonna be extremely good next year, and they could win a ton of games. Like it wouldn't surprise me if they won like 14 games next season. They are that good, and if they do that, I think Nick Sirianni would be in a strong contention for this award.
Yeah, that's very solid. All right, let's get into it. Final award, man.
MVP, and this time we go back to the runner-up, winner, sleeper format.
Yeah.
How do you want to start it? You want to start off?
Yeah, let's just talk about our runner-up.
Yeah, runner-up.
And we have the same runner-up actually.
Oh yeah, we do.
Well, you kind of have a 1A, 1B for your winner.
Okay, we all know who number one is. Okay,
right?
The real number one.
Yeah. So we have the same winner, I guess, and we also have the same quote unquote runner up, but you have another guy you want to talk about for winner as well.
And the reason why is because I just felt it felt unfair to name the real winner, so I was like, let's choose a this person.
Okay, sure, yeah. So both of our number two is Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I don't know what much there is to say. He's been phenomenal. He's on a great team, a great supporting cast. Every year he puts up MVP caliber numbers. It's just, can he get over the hump? And the turnovers need to come down a little bit. But, he's an MVP caliber player every year.
Yeah, and it feels like he's been underrated, heavily. It's kind of crazy. He's a phenomenal player. Just so good as a passer and a rusher. I think I don't know why people don't like him. I guess the interceptions are a little high, but it's not ridiculous or anything. Like his interception rates are not crazy.
Well, it's also as a rusher too, he's insane.
Yeah, the completion percentage is low, but
the last 2 years he's had over 750 rushing yards and multiple touchdowns. He's had over 5 rushing touchdowns every single year of his career.
Yeah,
and almost had 10 in 2019.
And in the last 3 years, he's had 2 seasons with a QBR over 70. And if you don't know what QBR is like an EPA or expected points added based metric that takes into account everything involved in quarterback play, passing, rushing, turnovers, penalties, and it puts the production on a 0 to 100 scale where 50 is average. And so if you're in 70s, great. If you're in the 70s, that's a really strong season. That's like an MVP caliber season. And if you're in the 80s, that's like an all-time great season. I'm not sure how many quarterbacks have actually done that. So in 2 of the last 3 years, he's had a QBR over 70, which is super impressive.
Yeah, 2020, 70, almost 77.
Which is
insane.
Wild.
4,500 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 picks.
Yeah, I think people get too caught up in playoff performance and if you're not winning rings, we hate you, and it's just ridiculous. Josh Allen's awesome, really good passer, great runner, one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, in 2020 he came in second MVP, just lost to Aaron Rodgers, who had an insane season that year.
Yeah, and like I said, there are some things to nitpick him on, the interceptions are a little high, but I don't think it's anything crazy, and his completion percentage is low, but completion percentage honestly isn't that important. There are quarterbacks who have had all-time great seasons without very impressive completion percentages. So if you're attempting a lot of very difficult throws, your completion percentage is probably not going to be high. There are better metrics to look at to measure accuracy than completion percentage. But yeah, even if you wanted to be a caveman stat watcher, you can look at the QB record, and he's won double-digit games the last 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So, like, even if you wanted to be, like, a wins merchant, like, he's been winning. Like, the Bills have had an elite offense the last couple of years because Josh Allen is doing everything, and he's been great at it.
Yeah.
Like, Josh Allen's awesome, and I think he will be in contention for the MVP award once again.
Okay,
That's my Josh Allen rant. There we go.
Thank you. I think let's go ahead and talk about the GOAT, and then you can talk about your guy that you wanted to talk about, kind of include in there. Patrick Mahomes, man. Mahomes, that's my, like, winner chicken dinner.
Yeah, he's like the pick you make every year. I mean, it's like...
Oh, yeah. I don't think I've had a single year where we've done this where I didn't say Patrick Mahomes was going to win MVP. We were just talking about QBR. You were like, I don't know how many quarterbacks have had a QBR of 80 plus. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is one of those people who has.
Yeah, Lamar did it in 2019.
Okay, yeah. 2018, Patrick Mahomes, his first year he won MVP with 5,000 passing yards, 50 touchdowns to 12 picks. Insane, first of all. 80.3 QBR. Followed up the next season with a 77 and like almost 78 QBR. Then had 78 again. Had a quote-unquote down year in 2021 with 62. And then last year had almost 78 again. Like, dude's insane.
Unreal. There's, I think it's 8 players. There's 9 individual seasons with a QBR of 80. Breeze did it twice. Manning did it twice. Mahomes did it once. David Gerard did it once with the Jaguars in 07. Tom Brady did it in 07. And, Aaron Rodgers did it in 11. Peyton Manning did it in 06. In 09, and Breeze did it in 11 and 09.
Dang, man. It's crazy.
It's like rare levels of play.
Yeah. So, I mean, this would be Mahomes' third MVP in 7 years.
Yeah. Back to back.
It would be back-to-back MVPs in his third in 7 years. Well, actually, his third in 6 years because he didn't play his rookie year.
Yeah.
So, his third in 6 years.
Yeah. That'd be crazy.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, he kind of won MVP. I mean, I was about to say he won MVP as a rookie, but not really. He won MVP as a first-year starter.
Yeah.
In 2018. I mean, dude's just insane. He's insane. And that's why I have the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. That's why I have Andy Reid as Coach of the Year. That's why I have Mahomes as MVP.
Yeah.
Dude's insane.
Simple case. He's the best quarterback in the league.
Simple case.
Legitimately, like, the most talented quarterback we've ever seen.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about Joe Burrow.
Yeah, we got to talk about Joe Burrow. Like, the people's champ. Everyone loves Joe Burrow.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not saying that's wrong. Joe Burrow is great, but yeah. If Mahomes doesn't win it, I feel like Joe Burrow would be the guy to win it. He was awesome last year. Has become one of the best passers in the NFL.
Yeah.
Just ridiculously good player. And it seems like the media really likes Joe Burrow. So if Mahomes isn't like the MVP favorite, I think that Joe Burrow would be the favorite in that case. Yeah. Just because the media seems to like him a lot. The media gives him a lot of credit for the Bengals making the Super Bowl in 2022? 2021?
I mean, it was the 2022 Super Bowl technically, but the 21 season.
Okay, yeah, in the 2021 season. They give him a lot of credit for that. And people just seem to like Joe Burrow a lot. And a lot more than Josh Allen, so I think if Mahomes isn't winning it, it's probably Joe Burrow who's winning it.
Fair enough, yeah. I completely agree with you. Let's get into some sleepers. I really only have one guy, so I'm going to go ahead and let you talk about a couple years because I know you have a few guys that you want to talk about.
Yeah, and I'll go through them quickly. Some other sleepers, and these are all quarterbacks because the MVP is like a quarterback.
Yeah, my sleeper is also a quarterback. And I will say, like, my sleeper is like kind of a deep sleeper.
Oh, yeah.
Mine is kind of a deep sleeper. Yours are kind of guys that are like on the verge of like, or guys who have either previously won MVP or like on the verge of like becoming elite quarterbacks.
Yeah, I had 3 sleepers. One of them, Justin Herbert. I think he's been awesome. He's another guy that people are underrating. Awesome player, has already played at an MVP level a few years ago. I don't think he was like, getting votes for the MVP award necessarily, but the numbers were just ridiculous. And the Chargers have a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore. I think they're going to be throwing the ball downfield a lot more. They have a extremely talented offense with Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnston. I think they're going to be able to throw the ball downfield a ton, and I think his numbers are going to be ridiculous. I think he is a great pick for MVP outside of Josh Allen and Joe Burrow.
He actually surprisingly has gotten MVP votes.
He did? Okay.
Weirdly enough, it was last year, which was like statistically his worst season.
No way. He was not that good last year.
He came in 9th for MVP last year, so he did get votes.
Yeah, that's crazy because last year he did have a down year, like admittedly. He did have a down year, so that's crazy. But yeah, I think Justin Herbert's numbers are going to look better next year. Maybe the completion percentage is lower because he's probably going to be throwing the ball downfield a lot more.
I hope so. He needs to.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I think his production is going to be ridiculous. Another sleeper I had is Trevor Lawrence. Showed a lot of improvement from his rookie year to his second season last year. He's just getting really good at small things like, pocket awareness, pocket movement, decision making, things that may be underrated by some people. He's getting really good at. From his first year to his second year, he got a lot better at keeping the football out of harm's way, not making bad decisions. His interception rate was super low last year. His pressure to sack rate was super low, and his numbers were just a lot better overall. He's also a pretty good rusher, not an elite rusher, but I think last year he was top 10 in rushing yards per game among quarterbacks. So you're getting a little bit of mobility from him as well. I think as the offense improves with guys like Calvin Ridley, and as he, continues to develop, he could become an MVP caliber player, like a lot quicker than we realize. Maybe it's not next year, but at some point down the road, he is going to get MVP votes. I'm very confident in that. And then we got Lamar Jackson, a guy who has been heavily criticized over the years for his playoff performance. Somewhat, deserved. In my opinion, I think the production in the playoffs has been really bad from him. And I do think he gets overhated sometimes, and I think people like to focus on what he doesn't do or what he can't do rather than what he does do, because he is a ridiculously talented football player. And now this year he's gonna be throwing the ball a lot more. They have a new offensive coordinator. What's his name? Todd Monken?
Yeah, Todd Monken, coming from the University of Georgia.
Yeah, so I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more, and now he has a pretty solid receiving core with Mark Andrews, who is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. You have Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers, and then you have J.K. Dobbins, a good offensive line. So I think their offense is going to be really, really good next year. And if they're throwing the ball a lot more, I think his numbers are going to be even better, and he could potentially, potentially, have a season that is similar to what he did in 2019. Now, that's a very high bar, and a bar that he probably won't reach, but I do think that his production is going to be a lot better next year, and I think he can be back in MVP conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here's my sleeper, my deep sleeper. That is Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. Last year, I think surprised a lot of people. His first year in Mike McDaniel's new offense, I mean, they put up numbers last year. It was insane. Tua, despite only playing in 13 games due to injury, threw for 3,500 yards passing. For, I think, a long stretch of the season, he was leading the league in passing yards until he got hurt.
Yeah.
25 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Very good numbers for only playing 13 games. I mean, he was on pace for probably around 30 touchdowns and 10 picks. It was it's very solid. They just have a really good offense. I mean, he has Tyreek Hill, who we already talked about for Offensive Player of the Year. One of the best receivers in the NFL. Jalen Waddle, who's turning into one of the best young receivers in the NFL. He was phenomenal last year. They have a very solid offensive line for him to work with. They were able to draft Devon Achane from Texas A&M. They also still have, what's the guy's name? He used to play for San Francisco. Not Breda, the other one, Raheem Mostert.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And they have Jeff Wilson, who also
Jeff
used to
Wilson
play for the 49ers.
and Raheem Mostert.
Hey, if you're playing the grid games,
Oh, yeah.
dude, those guys, if you ever get Dolphins 49ers,
Yeah.
those are my guys.
Those are solid. Very solid. And I mean, there's still talks about them signing Dalvin Cook, so that would be even crazier. I just think he's in a very good position with the offense that he's in and the players around him to have lots of success. And it's a long shot because there's so many good quarterbacks, especially in the AFC. But if everything lines up right for him next year, he could be in talks for MVP.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, he was in conversation last year.
Yeah. Well, and the main thing that has to line up is that he has to stay healthy. He has to play for a full season. He has to, just be able to be on the field.
Yeah. I do worry that maybe his production was a little bit as a result of, like, the system and the offense.
But, I mean, the system's not changing.
Right, yeah. No, yeah. My point there is that he won't be up for the MVP. Is that maybe he isn't an actual MVP caliber player, so maybe it will be hard to replicate.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a great pick for a sleeper. I like that a lot. I thought he was playing at an MVP level last year before he got hurt, which was huge because he was kind of struggling to start off his career.
Yeah.
So I like that pick a lot. Do you have anything else you want to add? Any comments before we close this thing out?
No, man, not that I can think of, man.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed this pod. That was a lot of fun. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, I would greatly appreciate it if you left us a review. That would help us out a lot. But yeah, that's all we got for y'all today. Can't wait for the NFL season. And once again, hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.